Okay, so welcome to part 3 of the screencast series about Cypress and Capybara as two browser automation testing tools. In the first part in the series, we just covered installation and setup of both tools into a Ruby on Rails application. Of course, either can be used outside the context of Rails, but I happen to be wanting to test a Rails application, and frankly, Rails gives you like a lot of a leg up in terms of test data facilities and test runners and all that. With that said, you could just as well use these things in isolation and standalone projects, on Node.js projects, on really any kind of project you'd like, and plenty of people do. So we did the installation and setup first. Part 2, my goal was to get through a lot more of these checkboxes, and I sort of did. I kind of got through none of them. But if we're being optimistic, we could say at least on the Capybara side, we covered writing our first test. We talked a good amount about selection and interaction with elements on the page. Showed what a normal development feedback loop is. One thing to keep in mind about that development feedback loop is it was really kind of stutter step, where I'm in a terminal on one hand, either writing code or I'm running my test, and in a browser on the other hand, and I'm kind of like syncing between the two. And actually that was a pretty good experience relative to my other experiences using Capybara. It may be the case that it's just in more complex situations where you've got a lot more going on in your Rails app. Subtle things in the background, changing state around, complexities around how the process is running. Or it could just be that like Rails is more stable and mature now, and there's less stuff that causes, for example, your console state to get thrown off, or for the WebDriver to take a crap. We didn't really run into any of that. We had a pretty decent experience. It still wasn't super fluid, and so I'm excited to show today, like when we're talking about Cypress, what that experience looks like. Because it's not like when I say Cypress versus Capybara, I don't really like. They're tools. Anything is fine. Like if you're able to write decent browser tests, congratulations, you're now in the top 1 percentile of like teams out there. But one of the ways that Cypress, I think, shows a path that is kind of exciting for the future of testing browser-based web applications is the development feedback loop is really strong. So look forward to doing that. We also covered some basic debugging and troubleshooting, and just by virtue of me running into problems while we were working. And so I'm willing to give myself a check mark there for now. But, more stuff will probably come up. Unfortunately, when it comes to Cypress, we have done really none of these things. And so today, in part 3 of the series, we're going to just cover the Cypress case. So without further ado, let's get rolling. And let's head right back into it. So this is the test we had just written together with Capybara. Our test data here. Now, I've already done a little bit of setup because I was using the Kame-Same code base as a foil for pushing forward the development of our Cypress Rails gem, which was a prerequisite to getting our data story to resemble what it would look like if you were writing a Capybara test for in Rails under a system test. And so using fixtures, we're going to do the same thing now, using Cypress Rails to handle the transaction rollbacks for us. And the way that we're going to do it is I'm going to start by showing what the Cypress Rails installation looks like, just to recap that, including the custom initializer that we'll need in order to make all this work. And I've already written that initializer, so I'm going to actually blow it up now, so we're doing it again together. So that's in config initializers. If you're not familiar with Rails, initializers are just like Ruby files that get required and executed at the beginning of Rails's boot. And like Rails's boot is really just like Rails's, I guess, like require time stuff. So like if you say like require a Rails application, even if it's just to run a one-off rake task or a script or the console or whatever, all this stuff still runs. And so there's kind of like one of the reasons Rails can be slow is because like it requires a bunch of files up front, and your initializers are one of them. And so this is an opportunity for you to do any kind of monkey patching and setup and calling configuration methods and stuff. And so that's what we're going to do here, except we're going to try to make sure we only call it when we want to. So I'm going to throw that away and we're going to start over. So again, to recap, Cypress Rails is installed in our gem file here. Cypress Rails, current version is 0.1.2 or something. I'm sure I'll find more bugs before I even release this. screencast. The basic configuration is exposed through rake tasks and an executable. You can of course execute it by just saying bundle exec Cypress Rails, and that would be fine. But typically I use the rake task, and I don't know why, but it seems fine. They're almost identical. All right. So to get our test data working, though, we need to tell it, hey, here's our test data. We need to load that somehow. So typically when we start, right before we run a test, we run a command db test prepare, or our runner runs it for us, or it gets run somehow, some way. And what that does is it makes sure that our test database is created, purged of everything. The SQL schema is reloaded, whether that's through a structure SQL DDL or through a schema.rb file. Yeah, I don't know if other stuff happens. Maybe seeds get loaded. I don't know. I don't have any seeds in this application. Sidestepping what seeds are. If you don't know what seeds are, just pretend I didn't say anything. All right. So we got our database set up. Next step, we're going to go to config initializers. We're going to create a new one called cypressrails.rb. And first things first, I really don't love the fact that in most Ruby applications, you can see I've got require false here next to a lot of these things. In most Ruby applications, like gems get required by default by tools like Rails that look at your gem bundle and are like, okay, cool, setup, load them all. So that's slow. So our thing is already getting loaded every time we're running just a development server, which seems excessive to me, but especially excessive would be like setting up all these hooks for a dev or, God forbid, a prod instance. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say like return if, just break out of this file entirely, return unless, I should say, rails.end.test. So if it's not test mode, I'm not going to do anything. So like, that's minimizing the harm that I can do to the world. If I next up want to start configuring Cypress Rails, let's take a look at what our options are. So GitHub, testable, Cypress Rails. Okay, so there's a section here after installation that I've added called managing your test data. So it's got a handful of hooks to call: before a server start, after transaction start, before server stop. What I want to do, what I want to accomplish with these hooks, is I don't think in our case I need to do anything after the state resets, but what I do need is before the server starts, I want to load the fixtures, because after that is when the transaction is going to get opened. And so when we roll back, I want to roll back to all of my fixtures are loaded, but I haven't mucked around with them yet, and all the other stuff that I've done is cleared out too. After the transaction starts, again, yeah, I don't think I need anything special yet with that. I imagine any of these could become quite complex once I'm writing a lot of tests for a lot of different types of scenarios. Maybe like one type of scenario needs, a lot of extra stubbing around, the Wanikani server, or just like additional data loaded, but like is expensive to load. And so I only want to do that, for certain test cases. I don't know. Maybe you need them, maybe no one will ever need them, but it doesn't matter. The other one I do need, though, is before server stop. I don't want to leave all of that fixture data just sitting in the test database, because basically then I'm leaving the test database by default in the state where somebody would have to run db test prepare again just to run any other test suite, lest they run into a polluted database with the fixtures already in it. Now that's fine if your other tests also use the exact same fixtures, but I suspect that it could cause subtle test pollution. So I want to make sure I use that hook and get rid of those fixture files. All right, so the most important skill any developer has in their tool belt is copy paste, followed by entering insert mode, panicking, hitting backspace, and then of course this is I'm a professional programmer. Then of course I also hitting undo. My undo buffer got screwed up. So let's try that again. Just paste. All right. One less thing to do. Okay, so I'm just going to use these two. So this is called right off the bat. Now I want to run a rake task here, and I want to do it programmatically. The problem is that this may not be loaded depending on how Rails is starting itself up. So if I say rake task db test prepare, Wait, that's not the one I want. That's the one I want at the end. That's going to reset the test state. And I think the method on the rake task is invoke. What I want here is it DB fixtures load? A handy trick. Anytime you need to know what rake tasks you got handy, remember I said I was going to start using bin stubs. We're going to do bin/rake next time. You can always run tac-t to get the list of all the tasks that have been defined. So yeah, indeed, it's DB fixtures load. Oh, look at that, got that right. I think the method is invoke. Now, a quick way we can test this would be just to start up a Rails console in test mode. So if I say bin Rails C, I'll open up a console, and I can just throw it in test mode by setting the Rails env environment variable to test. And this should blow up. No, it didn't blow up because I did this inside of a hook. So it'll only blow up if the hook gets executed if the rake task isn't defined. So let's just find out if this works, and we can investigate this using by inspecting Postgres. So let's run brake Cypress. So you can see we have more glue code here because this is like our responsibility, whereas system tests just work out of the box. Now, it is set it and forget it, and once it's done, we shouldn't have to worry about it again. Oh, look, that just worked. So maybe rake tasks are just running. I'm suspicious. Let's try Cypress open and we'll inspect it while it's open. So remember, when we talk about feedback loops of development, Cypress open is a command to basically give you a little IDE kind of environment to work in interactively and build your tests collaboratively with you. If I open up this URL, so I'm getting a random port each time because I haven't fixed to a particular port here. It's just looking for any open one. This allows you to run like a headless test execution alongside running Cypress open without the two having a port conflict. Okay, so here I can see, here's kind of assignment. Let's see if my fixtures are present. One quickest way to test that is see if my user is there. It's the only user defined in fixtures. It's not there, so something's not. Aha! So if you're familiar with my particular Vim configuration, which I guess you probably shouldn't be, this red line here means I didn't save the file. I save pretty habitually. In this case, I dropped the ball, and for that, I apologize. All right, so I didn't run my fixtures, which is why I didn't see the error I expected. Good. So I expected to see this error because I didn't expect Rails to have loaded up all of our rake tasks. A way that you can do that is Rails.application.help, I need an adult. Help. Rails.application.load. Ooh, those deprecations stink. Load rake. Load tasks. There it is. Okay, so that's the name of the method I want. Load tasks. And one is just expected to know, of course, that our tasks are rake tasks, I assume. And I don't want to call this multiple times. I did learn the other day that if this gets called multiple times while rake is running, rake will just run the command multiple times, which seems not ideal, especially if you're deleting a database. So we're going to say unless, really, well, since my problem is that rake task is not defined, a nice way to sense whether or not I need to run this is say if it's defined, don't load the task. So unless defined rake task. Now, of course, it's Ruby, so I can't just say like, do this if rake task equals undefined or something, right? Because this is a constant, so referencing a constant that's not defined will blow up. But defined ? Is a special method in Ruby, which will actually like permit you, sort of like if you're a JavaScript person, type of is forgiving of the thing following type of because it might not be defined, so it's not going to blow up and say it's not defined. Same deal here. So Rails application load task. So let's see if that works. Fantastic. Exit. My pry configuration is not super great right now, nor is my ability to hit up and then enter. Okay. Big money, big money. No whammies. All right, again, the way to test this is probably easiest. Take that URL. There's got to be a better way. Load up Searls at Gmail. Now you all know my email address. Dum, 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 dum. All right, fixtures, they're there. Excellent, cool. So we can, we don't probably have to go and check our database to make sure that they're there. But it would be interesting to make sure that they're getting put in there before that transaction. So like if and when rollbacks start happening. One way to test that is to go and look at the test database, look at users. Okay, so they are indeed there. They've been flushed and committed because other connections to the database can see them. Now, the next bit of plumbing and this is all just in service of explaining Cypress and Cypress Rails and how this dance works between the two of them. The next thing I want to know is that rollbacks will work. So if I pretend I'm a test and I'm going in, I'm changing my name to fancy person .biz, and I hit save. Those changes are saved, and I can make sure that they're saved by refreshing the page. My user is going to get reloaded through the API here, and I'm confident, being familiar with this app, that means that got persisted, even though it should be in memory in a transaction. So when I reload this should not be updated, right? Still refers to whatever was in the fixture, so that's good so far. So it tells us a couple things. It tells us we loaded our stuff in correctly before that transaction started. We can change stuff within that transaction, have it persist as far as the Rails applications process cares. And now what we need is a way to reset back to the original transaction. Now, the reason I'm showing this just in a browser without looking at a Cypress test is because I want to disabuse any notion that this is like magic. This is real simple stuff made unnecessarily complicated by just the number of moving parts. Cypress Rails reset, and I'm gonna not finish that letter just because I know browsers sometimes send stuff aggressively as soon as they type in the location bar. When I send any kind of request to Cypress Rails reset state, I really hope I got that right, what it'll do is it'll trigger a reset of that transaction. And I just get accepted here because it hasn't done it yet. It does it the next time that any request gets hit by Rails. So if I hit refresh here, that'll reload and look, there I'm perfect. Fantastic, right? So I rolled back state to the beginning of the transaction. So one can surmise then that all I want to do is between each test, either test file or test case, depending on the design of the test and how bad a risk pollution is, I want to reset back to the transaction state. Now that, if this is all super obvious to you, I apologize for spending 7 minutes of your time explaining it, but it took me like 2 days, and so please give me the 7 minutes. All right, next up, the thing that we want to make sure happens is that when we quit either Cypress Open or when Cypress Run exits, that it resets the database to its original state. One way to do that is to run the DB test prepare again. It's a kind of heavyweight thing to do though. It requires an exclusive lock on the database. So like no other users can be connected because it's dropping the database. Postgres won't let other users be connected because they might have stuff in flight. So that means I actually have to quit this session with Postico. Then I'm going to quit here. Okay, and please, if you keep seeing this stack trace, this is because I'm using a Capybara server under the hood, and I think it's like capturing SIGINT and doing this. It doesn't matter. I'll try to clean that up in the gem at some point through a monkey patch or something. But you can see set config ran, and that got flushed to the console, which tells me DB test prepare also ran. And so if I open up Postico again, and I connect, and good. Hey, sweet. Our stuff's all gone. So that means all of our test data machinations so far appear to be working, and that means we can write a test. Yay. So, good job, team. So we're going to start writing a test. I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to call it sign. I'm going to use dashes because it's a JavaScript file. Sign ups test, because that's what I learned from Ruby on Rails. I learned it from watching you, Dad. All right. So Cypress open, we can run that again. We're going to keep this open now. So unlike before where we're running a test, closing a test, running a test in a REPL, trying to get feedback from the system quickly, this we're just going to leave running. We're going to start making a habit of saving files because it turns out it's really hard as a programmer to have much success in this career if you don't save your files. All right, so signs up a user, and we're going to do the same kind of test that we did before. So we have a apples to apples comparison. And completes a lesson. I never know the right amount of English to write into these sort of like BDD-like tools because I don't know that I'm ever going to read them. Someone else might, so here we go. It's always good to be err on the side of expressiveness. If nothing else, you're explaining to yourself what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, so Cypress gives us a relatively helpful error here. All right, so one thing we can do is we can start by saying, first and foremost, I always want to like ensure in advance that I've got safety from test pollution. And so that means I can say before each, or I could say before. Before is an is a before all hook. So if I had like 5 it tests here and I just used before as my hook for resetting the state, then the first one's data changes would affect the second, would affect the third, would affect the fourth. So there's no parallelization possible for Cypress within the context of a test file because the order does matter if you use before all hooks, which is why in general using a before all hook by default isn't great advice typically. All right, so before each, we are going to send an HTTP request of really any kind to Cypress Rails reset state. That should be my password. It's 4 random words. It passes the XKCD test. I don't need to pass any arguments to it. It's probably complaining that these are globals. Yeah, so we're gonna just go back to our package JSON and tell style. There we go. Before each. There will probably be others. Reopen that. Okay. So I guess technically this should be signups. I'm failing today. I'm a nervous typer. Signs up a user and does a lesson. Okay. See, I talk too fast, but I type too slowly, so I can't just speed up this video to try to trick you, because then I would sound like a chipmunk, even though I would look smarter. Okay, so we're gonna visit a page. We're gonna visit just slash, just like we did before. Sci.visit. See, my brain has been now context switched into Capybara. You know what? We've been like doing this, and you haven't even been able to see that like Cypress has been listening to every single file change. So let's split sides. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. I think our earlier session in part 2, I had a little bit too much like text running over the side of the page. So every time I change this, it's gonna rerun the whole thing, which definitely makes it a good idea to be resetting the state before each test. At the very least, by default. Maybe we can optimize things later, but I don't think this is gonna add so little overhead to our runtime. It's the same exact thing that Rails is doing. Okay, so we want to log in. Or sign up. So we're going to click sign up. So sci.contains, the only thing on the page that says sign up is a link. You can just do this. Click. Okay. Then we want to fill in our name, email, and password. This is something that bums me out because I talked about it in part 1. There is no real easy way to just select something based on its label. Select a field based on the text inside of a label. It might be a sibling element. They might be very far away from each other in the DOM. All that it really looks at is like the ID of the thing should be in the for attribute of the label, pointing to the ID of the text input or the input field. So you know, I have a custom field that I can use, and maybe we should try it because I think it's worth it. Other than the Cypress Capybara NPM module, I iterated on it because Gleb, who wrote Cypress, along with Brian Mann, helped me out by writing this command that I wanted, even though they don't think it belongs in Cypress proper. So let's first try to get this selected without it, and then let's try adding it, because it's important to me that we select as much as we can based on the text displayed to the user. All right, so this is name, label name, everything's name. So we're gonna find sci.get, and really what I dislike is, I mean, we could do this, but then it's just, let's pick somebody else from the company, Raylan. No, Raylan's awesome. All right, so that typed Raylan. I just still don't like this selector, so let's try to make it better. Custom commands can go into Cypress support commands ? All right, so you can do custom stuff here, and they give you a couple examples of like, this is what it looks like to do a custom thing, and that's great, but I'm just very over long, you know, yeah, you know, if I really need it, it'll be in Git. All right, paste. So this is what I've got in another project that we're doing at test level. Just a couple commands. Cypress is a global. It's probably the same thing as Sci. It's probably not actually, but anyway, it's a global. Comes with it. Comes with the territory. All right. So what this does is basically, by saying Cypress commands add yada yada, you're now making a new method that you can call on cy dot when you're writing your test. So I want to be able to say cy.getField and then just give it the label text. So you can kind of read, and if you squint, it sort of makes sense. Like, I'm getting a label. This pipe thing, I don't know what it means. I don't know if it means Unix pipe. I don't know if it means like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, like sliding on a rail pipe. But like, you kind of slip through here, and then as you're piping, you pass it another thing to which the results of the first get passed. So exact then inexact finds the text on the label, finds the attribute for, and then after it's found that, it'll find an input or a text area or a select with that ID, which should match most of the fields that you get. I just realized I gave the worst explanation of what this pipe function is. It probably would have taken me less time to explain what it really works instead of like come up with a cockamamie metaphor. But you know, people don't watch screencasts for the facts. They watch it for the personality and the color commentary and the wanton inaccuracy. And I can get you all that here today. So all right, looks pretty good. I also have a couple others that I liked. Page should contain, page should not contain, and yeah, those ironically were also things I struggled with getting to work in Capybara. It just seems like an easy test for me. Hey, is this text on the page? Seems obvious, but maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's the children who are wrong. So this is now a thing. Let's just try to change it to get field name. Well, that's disappointing. So Cypress just had a major release from 3 to 4, and maybe my custom command stopped working. And if that's the case, then this is all an important life lesson in why you don't write custom things, because then you have to maintain custom things. So let's try to figure this out. Gosh darn it. Fiddlesticks. Maybe Cypress for changelog. Oh, it uses Simon. That always bums me out. I wish that they use test double. But I guess, got it. Do what's popular. CJSX. What is that? Like coffee JavaScript X JSX? None of this mentions. I do like that contains now. Is a white space smarter. Well, I don't know that I'm going to find out what happened to slide.pipe, am I? The search engine. I love static documentation sites like this, don't get me wrong, but I think that the search engines tend to be bad. The Algolia, that one, seems to be used by like a lot of open source, and I don't love it. If you work at Algolia, please at me, and I'll apologize, because I probably feel badly. Cypress pipe. Oh, do I need to add this? Published 2 days ago. Well, goodness. Well, the usage here is wrap and then pipe. If I say wrap and then pipe, does that just work, or do I need this module? Yeah, okay, I need the module. All right, so that might be a quick solution. Maybe this has got extracted or something. Quit this, yarn add d Cypress pipe. Maybe that'll just enable this and we can just move past it. What? Oh, I just ran things too fast. Yeah, that happens. It's always a bummer when your development setup depends on you typing too slow. All right, so maybe that worked. Probably need to go into Cypress support. Oh, yeah. Yeah, import stuff. Maybe this is just a global. Import loggable. I assume I need to call import on it, but maybe even that's wrong. All right. See how this goes. We'll give up if this doesn't work. Well, that doesn't seem right. So, come on. So now Webpacker is being mad, and I don't know why. Sometimes just rerunning stuff fixes it. What I found lately is that whatever like the latest version of 1.x yarn is apparently not rebuilding dependencies correctly after install. So I have to run npm rebuild because rebuild for native stuff only comes with yarn 2, which is apparently not a global anymore. I don't understand any of this. The churn in this industry is causing me to lose what little hair I have left. Hope nobody minds just the wanton hot takes that come out of my face when I'm waiting on my computer. Please just work. Okay, well, that hot take might have been misdirected. Why don't you work now? I don't understand. If what I say is, what if what I say is, if I just start up my server, am I working? I guess that's the first question. Did I break it? Server's already running. Okay. Oh, yes, so it is. Try again. Okay, so that's not broken. That's neat. All right, good, good, good. Maybe that just fixed, because we're in this weird state of like Webpacker can't compile. I don't trust that it's separated between the test and the development environments well enough. That might have just shaken whatever cobweb loose that we need. Now, this is not the fault of Cypress. It's just a thing we happened to run into while we were fighting with Cypress. What the what? It's the same error again. What is going on? I might have to pause this and come back. We need like a 3-minute rule. I mean, one option is we just totally punt on this pipe thing. I mean, maybe I just, by adding a thing in yarn, let's see what the get diff is. So that is very minor. That really should not be a... None of these should be the problem. Installed harder. Okay, so it's all cached. If I say yarn or bin webpack dev server, it thinks it's built. And now I say, I realize this is very exciting stuff, but this is like just, if you're a developer, you know how it is. Sometimes stuff just doesn't work and you spend your day doing the wrong thing. And when people ask you how your day was, you just say, I don't know. I fought with my computer and I got a few things done. It's real stuck on this. If I start, there's a criticism that you should be levying against me is that I'm not closely reading this error message. And it's very possible it's telling me exactly what it needs to, God bless it. So, there is just no defensible reason why I need to be running this separate Webpack dev server in order to run my tests. It should be handled by the Rails server. So the way Rails and Webpack work is there's this Webpacker gem that you may or may not have enabled in your Rails application. And if you are running both Rails server and a Webpack dev server, Rails knows like, okay, just let it do its thing and it'll load the assets and I'll just make sure the URLs are right in script tags and whatnot. But if the dev server is not running, it becomes Rails' responsibility to have like a middleware or something, I guess, that will execute Webpack with cache, but like relatively inefficiently over and over again on every request. It should be doing that for us, and it looks like it's just failing. So we'll see if this works. Otherwise, we'll just run the server. Good Lord. What is going on? Does this other test work? All right. Well, one way to get past this for now is we'll just run the server, I suppose. The Webpack dev server separately. Why? I don't get it. So this is Rails and test Webpack dev server. We'll refresh this. And now it's there. Boy, that's really frustrating. All right, well, thanks for coming along with me on that journey. All so that we could just say get field. I now regret everything I've done. Also on this little exercise. Let's see. Sign up test. All right, so we got Rail in there. Cool. Okay, so Now, instead of saying site.get whatever, we can say email with the dash, the way that I like it. The old school way that people used to type email, example.com, password. Remember, everyone's password in my fictional cinematic universe is Justin. And then this optional bit here about Wani Kani, that's now optional. We can sign up without it. So we want to get a button ultimately that says sign up. One funny thing here is if we say click on sign up, I don't think it's going to work because I think it's going to find this. If we just say sci.contains sign up and then we try to click it. So this is actually already showing us that like Cypress is where Capybara is very strict by default. If something can't be clicked on, like a non-interactive div, it'll yell at you and say you can't click on that. It's not going to take that event. Cypress is more forgiving because it's just delegating straight to jQuery. So it's like, sure, yeah, I guess we can send a click event. Maybe something will happen. Maybe you have something bound to that. So it's more forgiving, but it also results in more confusing cases here where it's like, and so here's the debugging story, right? So like you've seen that like, yes, it's nice. You can see the stuff interactively. But what's real cool is like, I can see every little snapshot of every little thing that happened as I filled this out. And so when I click here, I've now pinned the snapshot of the DOM in that moment. It's saving all of this, which you'd think would be expensive, but it manages. It pins it, and I can take a look, and I see that is the sign up that it is grabbing. It is not grabbing the button, so that's a problem. And then if I hit this X, it unpins. And now I'm back to just the current state of the DOM. So that's not what I want. I wonder if I can combine the two. I know it's a button. Actually, I don't know it's a button. Okay, well, it was a button. So here I am. I'm in the app now. So now we can kind of like move right along. We can say sci.contains. We have sort of the same problem, right? It's not going to see a thing called lessons, or there's going to be more of them. Yeah, okay. So here we are again with the sort of problem of, I don't know how to find a link per se. I could find a link that contains lessons. That doesn't seem, it smells wrong to me. I think I'm selecting this the wrong way. Yeah, this isn't right. So let's figure out the right way to select links in Cypress. Somebody can be really experienced with these libraries and also forget them 15 minutes after using them. So I have not been writing a whole lot of tests like this lately. One idea is we find the selector and we just provide it a little bit more to go on as opposed to using multiple methods. And that seems to be the direction you see that it's going down. You can also use within, but that's more for like nested bits. You can set aliases, that's kind of cute. And then you can reuse them later using an @ symbol. All right, well, we'll just win in Rome, right? So if we say, now here's a bit of a problem. Well, I don't know if it's a problem per se. So like every single time we save anything here, it is now running through a 4-second sign-up process, which is great to see that it can do it over and over again, but it's actually slower than the feedback loop with Capybara. I don't have an awesome solution for that other than knowing that there is a command called sci.debug where it'll pause. And maybe that means that then I go into console. I don't know. Sci.get. Look how teeny tiny. Okay, sci.get a contains lessons. Click. I don't like that. So it's not resolving. The same way. Maybe this needs to be in quotes. Maybe that straight up just does not work. Bummer. Let's see if this selector makes it happy at least. We should be able to figure that out. Or maybe the debugger never hooked. It completed. Because I didn't have Web Inspector open. Let's try that again. Ah, there we are. So now we're in a debugger proper. What's this comment say? Hover over to inspect the current subject. Subject undefined. Undefined. Oh, I like that. This must be a new Chrome thing, huh? Okay. So I don't have a current subject. That's probably what debug is really for. It's not for writing in. This feels like not the point. Yeah, I don't think this is what we should be doing. There's also side.pause. I don't think I've got a great solution to this. Let's try that selector again. So let's just try it the way that we know the system likes us to use it here. It sees 2. Okay. How do I tell which are the 2? 2 matched elements. That one, it kind of looks like it's grabbing progress. I don't see anything else highlighted. Print to console. Okay, here we go. So anchor point 1, or 0. There's an invisible one. This is a trick that I use to support PWAs where the navigation is fixed to the bottom of the screen. So one of these is invisible. So if I just say, here I was trying to show off how great Cypress is, and I'm struggling because it's harder to find links. If I just say this, yeah, okay, so it can only be sent to a single element, and my thing matched 2 elements, and that's a fair criticism of my approach. I don't want to have to say visible. But that worked. So this is just ugly. Like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I'm not blaming Cypress here. It's just the documentation leads you down a path of writing more and more jQuery-ease selector. Now, the benefit is you do have the full power of jQuery. You're in the browser, you're in the DOM. You can do stuff like the pseudo selector visible that wouldn't necessarily work with Capybara. Don't quote me on that. Click link lessons in Capybara is very nice. And I wish that was an out-of-the-box thing. And it is a thing in that Cypress Capybara module that we wrote a test double a couple years ago, but I don't want to I don't want to mess with yarn any more than I already have. So let's roll along here. We're behind schedule, so to speak. So I'm going to go and select the N4 vocabulary, and now I'm going to kind of play the game. I'm just going to grab this thing the way that Cypress wants me to. Sci.get this. I'm going to say select JLPT N4 vocabulary. I'm going to say now I'm going to probably want to have a command that's just like get visible link with this text, right? Like, I don't want to write this over and over again. So give me a visible link that just says show details and click it. And now, of course, we have to watch the whole sign up happen again. It feels like this, I should be able to put a pause in. I know there's a sign.pause, but I don't think that's what it does. I think it just reruns the whole test and gives it to me again. Okay, so that worked, but I really don't like it. I don't like it enough that I'm gonna take a stab real quick at, I'm gonna say get link, and rather than write something more complicated, we're gonna just say, so this is an expression, so we don't need to say return. And we're going to change this to an interpolated get link. So again, you can build abstractions very easily in Cypress, assuming this works. What doesn't it like? I messed up. What did I do? Help. If I just delete this. Okay, so that was to blame. Oh, what? I just pasted it back in. All right. And this time it doesn't work? Contains, oh, there's a rogue right bracket. So glad I caught that. All right, so we're gonna say get link, show details, click. And then we want to make sure that side, and we can use the little selector doodad. It'll probably give us the same. Here we go. Perfect. You should, and now here for the selector assertions, we have this should method have text 0. Totally gonna work this time. Maybe I need to give that a string. Expect to have text 0, but the text was 0. All right. Try that again. No. Expect div datum to have text 0, but the text was 0. There's got to be, it's got to be a white space thing. So I could say contains text, should contain text maybe. But I kind of feel like it should be trim. Just, I want to test the trim thing because like 10, like if the number was 10, that does contain 0, right? Not gonna fight that battle right now. It's 52 minutes into this, gotta barrel forward. All right, we're gonna click the link to start studying. Are there multiple buttons? No, there's just one button that says start studying. We're gonna write a similar loop now once we're in here to our other one. And if you recall from the previous session when we were in Capybara, what we want to do is we're going to write a test of only one of these cards getting answered correctly and all the other ones being skipped. So we know that there's going to be a total of 6 cards because we've got that under our control. And so we want to do something 6 times exactly. So we can say, is Lodash just part of this? Can I just say times? Arugula. Okay, perfect. So I'll just do the same sort of thing. Times, 6 times, do a thing. And now if, let's get this selector, sci.get text. Now that is probably, and you can copy to clipboard faster than I've been doing. I want to be a little bit more specific because just grabbing the first text node feels weird to me. So let's grab this meaning, class meaning. Meaning text. So if it is, so now what my brain's thinking is like, right, all this stuff is happening with like promise logic in the background, and so there's like a then chaining that's probably going to be necessary for me to have a branch. if text, if. Yeah, so I could say then for sure. I think that's probably what I need to do. Because I can't just read the text on the field, I don't think. Get text. Yeah, this documentation site's not giving me. Well, yeah, that's contains, invoke, clear. We'll do the thing that we think is going to work. It won't be perfect. Okay. Hey, look. What? Underscore is not defined. Oh. What if it was only defined because Kame-sama uses Lodash? Maybe I pulled in underscore times. Okay. Do we say let I equal 0 now? I haven't written a for loop in so long. It may have been 5 years since I've written a for loop like this. Don't trust anything I have to say about coding. Okay, then so here I'll have the jQuery element, which is an interesting thing. And now if that jQuery element's text, we're going to call that a challenge like we did in the other test. If that equals to walk with 3, because we're JavaScript now, so it's using the standard format, else do this. So if it equals walk, we're just going to kind of type ahead, because actually, honestly, with the amount of time that we have to spend letting this test run in the background. All right. Else we're going to go and find, so we're going to use our little get link thing we wrote. We'll click skip. And if we find walk, then we're going to type into the answer field. Here we got, so we skipped a couple things and we got to walk. Sci dot, well, let's use the dingus. Ooh, that we don't want to select it that way. So the thing about automatic selector stuff is no one's going to know the structure of your DOM better than you do if you're the developer. And even if you weren't the developer of the DOM, of the document, using human eyeballs to figure out the meaning is going to be better, because handle enter happens to have like a special semantic meaning for like my global keystroke catching crap. And so I definitely don't want to use that. In fact, there is a, I believe, ugh. Come on. Yeah, so name answer is it also the ID? No, it's not the ID, but we can find the name at least. Okay, so input name. I'm running out of patience. This has been slightly more frustrating than I expected it to be. So sorry this has not been the best Cypress advertisement, although I think it's actually pretty impressively robust what they've built. Okay, we're gonna say type. Here's one thing I really like. We can type in whatever we like. So we're gonna type in the correct answer, and then we can just type enter. And that way we're making it pretty clear that we're typing a special keystroke instead of just like /n. So you can see we're right. And now we're gonna click the emoji link. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did before in the Ruby test. We're gonna just type in a right hand emoji and click it. All right. Now we're getting down to the end of the test where under completed, we want to make sure we see one thing and under the other. So we're going to get 2 sets of these list item. List item? Is that what I call it? Item list, of course, because it's a list. Item list. There will be 2 of them. I could either do 2 separate assertions, first of the number of children in the first. Yeah, let's try that. Well, it's not exactly the first child, second child, right? Because they're just kind of scattered in with these H3s. I guess I could just say, like, just give it to me like we did with the other one. Item lists. This is another jQuery object now. So expect item lists. Oh man, there's so many different assertion things going on. I can't keep straight. Assertions. I just want the simplest one. Assert, okay, we can use just node assert. Okay, that's fine, we'll do that. So assert dot equal, this is not the equal I should use strict equal. Assert strict equal, doesn't tell me which one's the expected because they're both just, darn it, here we go, actual expected. Okay, actual, so length, so expect there to be 2 of them, right? It just doesn't know it's global, so tack that onto the list of global stuff. Of course, that file's been written to, okay. You can feel that I'm at my wit's end. I'm getting close. Now that we're over an hour to get to this one test because of all the different yaks we've had to shave. Okay, so there's 2 of them. Now, again, I'm no longer a jQuery expert, but I believe that we can just use the subselector to say, hey, the first one, that'll get us the DOM element. Oh, goodness. Tell you what. Here's one thing we should be able to do in console. If we can't use sci.get, we should at least be able to say, give us the item list, right? Make that bigger. Item list. No? jQuery? What? Okay, well, maybe that's more than I expected. Okay. Let's wrap it. So we know we have a jQuery thing, and then we want to get, I have forgotten the jQuery API. If you have a thing and you want to get children of the thing, oh my goodness. I'm blanking, help, help, and I don't have a way to test it because I don't know any sites that use jQuery anymore. Go to the homepage. Surely got jQuery just sitting in a global on their homepage. Load faster. This is embarrassing. The first one. Oh my goodness. Come on. Okay. Be a console. Yes. Okay. Div. Yes. children. Give me projects. Cool, it is children. Neat, that's all I need to know. Give me the LIs and give me the length of them. So the first one should be 1. There's 1 completed thing. Why are you mad at me? What did I do? Oh, right. The second one, what's going on here? Oh, good grief. Sorry, everyone. Should be 5 things. Now, because it's an event, I also don't trust that it's running, so we'll want to run that twice. Get this up and running. $sign is not defined? Oh, right. So what I've been doing was, how do I use jQuery if $sign is not defined? Is that really the problem? Oh goodness, I've gotten myself into some trouble here. Reopen this test. Stop. Try. Please. Okay. Okay, function children is not a function. Yes, I would expect that. Of course, standard doesn't know that $sign might be a global, so we'll try this again, and if it doesn't work, okay, $sign is indeed not defined. I know that Cypress uses jQuery all over the place. Bundled libraries, bundled tools. jQuery? Cypress.$sign. Okay. This can't be right. This is not the right way to do what I'm doing. If this is the right answer, I'm asking the wrong question. All right. Okay. You can see these expectations happen. So a great thing about Cypress's approach here is like every assertion, everything just goes into this log. So I don't have to spend a whole bunch of time doodling around to make sure that like run this with a 4, run this with a 3. Like I can see that the assertion actually happened. So I don't have to force the failure necessarily. It saves me time over the long haul. All right, so now we're gonna go back. We're gonna click the lessons link one more time. And we're gonna go and we don't need to click show details again. We're just gonna make sure that there's 1. Good, and we did. See, so easy. Browser testing. Now, I may have just made you reconsider writing any browser test at all, and that in several contexts, depending on your team and your circumstance, might be the right call to make. But ultimately, you also saw that, like, you know, we build up our own systems and abstractions to smooth off the pain points, because at the end of the day, like, the amount of stuff in each of our apps is finite, especially the better you do at developing a consistent kind of approach to reusable components and widgets. You really have to solve these problems like once or twice. But yeah, honestly, that was more painful than I expected it to be. I really wish I had a way to just say like, only rerun these last little parts, or only run this like one little thing in like a REPL-like environment. So ironically, the fact that I was stuck inside of a custom REPL in Capybara was actually a benefit, because it didn't require me to rewind constantly. And even though that was only like a 3-second cost, I imagine for a lot of apps it'd be a lot slower if your backends aren't super fast. So it's a consideration, and something I'll definitely ask the Cypress folks about. All right, so going back to our slideshow. We wrote a test, talked about selection, we looked at what a normal development feedback loop is. I don't think that I really sold it to you as well as so whereas the Capybara experience went better than it usually goes for me, the Cypress experience went significantly worse than it usually goes for me. Maybe I'm just tired. I'm going to say enough debugging and troubleshooting today. And now for these last two little bits of running browser tests as part of your build and setting up continuous integration, we can do these really fast. So rather than have a fourth screencast, let's just show what that looks like. Because we've already done basically all of this. I'm going to quit out everything. Now, separately, I have the fear that by stopping this Webpacker server, everything's going to break again. Bin, rake, test, system. We've already been running our system tests headlessly because we use the same command to run them, whether we're planning on pausing and developing or not. Now, I said headlessly. I meant from a command line. This is obviously not headless. If I want to run headlessly, there's some kind of flag I need to send. And I don't remember what that is. I just don't. It just magically worked for me in Circle CI. So one thing we might be able to do, if we want to run this locally, is we could just look at our application system test case, which is the root case here, and we can say args. I'll use some more lines here. This is going to be longer. If this environment variable is set, then headless. Otherwise, because I don't want to make a compact call just for something like this, so we'll just return an array of headless or an empty array. See if that works for us. Neat. Oh, shoot. It's not the same method, is it? How does this just work? Rails guide system test. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to get stuck on it. Truth be told, the fact that I can get to run in Circle without running it specifically headlessly is good enough for me. So that ran fine, and that passed, and you can see here it passed. If we want to run our Cypress test now, we have a different command, which is bin rake Cypress Run, and this will happen headlessly because it's expressly using Electron. One of the things that's nice about it as well is that by default it's going to record not just screenshots of failures, but full-blown MP4 videos of your actual test in progress. So it's a little bit slower, but the benefit is if I open up this guy, this thing right here, okay, so I can actually see what was happening, and that artifact, you know, I can configure to archive with my CI system. And that's a really, really, really handy thing when you're trying to debug a thorny browser test. And that's worth a lot. So whether you're using system tests or whatever tool you're using, being able to go back and get video, super valuable. And Cypress, the product, which is like a platform for basically a CI platform, is really good at like integrating lots of different video components to help you understand when and why your test suites fail. Okay, now the CI system is actually also pretty easy if you're using Circle. It just requires a certain amount of copy pasta, which I prepared for you somewhat over here in Cypress Rails. Down here, you want the things to keep out in mind is Cypress stores itself in its own cache directory, so you want to store all of cache along with your yarn stuff. You want to make sure that you're running bin rake Cypress Run, and that's kind of it. I mean, we needed Postgres because we're a Rails app, and otherwise we need Ruby plus Node plus browsers. And we do our normal, if you use Circle CI before, it's kind of like straightforward cache and restore logic and yarn install and whatnot. And so this is going to be like a little bit more complicated because it's a real application. But you can see that other than running a couple linter commands, yarn run style, we were also preparing our database for test run. We run our Cypress test with bundle exec ref Cypress Run. Then we run our system test like this. And we push it all up. And in fact, I think I've got Circle CI, GitHub, Searls. Yeah, so this has been running and working. I don't want to tempt fate by pushing it up now. So that setup is working pretty fine for me. Let's go ahead and commit all this. Just eyeballing. Yeah, cool. Write a couple tests. Yeah, I have noticed that the Cypress stuff is a little bit slower in CI than the Rails system test. I think that the reason has more to do with the file system and processing the videos for each of the runs based on just reading the logs last night. But yeah, this should work fine. What does $sign mean? Oh, whatever. I will fast forward through this because we're already at an hour 18, and I will mention that we're basically through everything that we hoped to get through in this series. So we got to see a little bit about what it's like using Capybara, what it's like using Cypress, some of the pros and cons between the two. Honestly, goal here today, not necessarily to say one's better than the other. My goal is to level the playing field so that for Rails developers specifically, it's a pretty even choice between which one you use. I think that in general, the more complicated stuff that you do in the browser in JavaScript, the more attractive Cypress's feature set is going to be to you. Because you have your test running in the same browser as your application, you can get your meaty hooks in to certain things in the DOM through better selectors, through being able to execute JavaScript inside that environment without some big hairy API like execute JavaScript in page or execute script, eval script from Capybara. Similarly, the feedback loop is normally much faster. But however, if you just want a simple way to open a browser and use Capybara is fine, especially if you have pretty straightforward conventional Rails resources without a whole lot of front-end JavaScript. System tests also work fine. So I'm not here to sell something. I think both are pretty good. I'm happy to have multiple choices. And installing dependencies takes too long. So I'm going to call it. We're just going to trust that build succeeded. I've declared. So thanks for spending this time with me over these 3 screencasts. It was a lot of fun. I'll probably also release a shorter one that just shows off Cypress Rails and more of a vanilla simple case. But yeah, it's pretty exciting to see how far browser automation has come. We had a few years there where there wasn't a lot of advancement, and I feel like if it weren't for Cypress, we wouldn't be seeing a lot of innovation in this area right now. Not to mention, we've got a lot of other cool tools like Percy and Backstop that are really doing excellent image regression system analysis, and that has its own use. So exciting times for integration tests for sure. Yeah, so thanks for coming along with me. Would love to hear about what works for you, what doesn't work for you from an integration test perspective. And keep in mind, like, the most important thing, not the tool, it's like how you use it and how you communicate your intentions with it and how consistent you can make your team. And that's really where Test Double, like, why we exist, because that stuff's hard. It never gets easier. And having an outsider who can work alongside you and your team to like help you along the way towards that ideal end state of having consistent, straightforward, comprehensible systems is why we're in business, because we want to help you succeed. So thus concludes my pitch. I was hoping that the test would just finish by then, and I failed. So goodbye. See you later.